I see a bunch of new faces here in the house tonight. I'm going to acknowledge as many of you as I can. I see Jeff Terry is here. Welcome, Jeff Terry. I'm glad you could make it.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And let's see. Courtney Albrecht is here from Metra. Hello to Courtney. Let's see. Rob Schreiner. Hello, Rob. How are you?
Hello, good evening all.
Good to see you. And Robert Newhouser is here from the Railroad Enthusiasts in New York City. And Believer, is that Jerry Hilton I see there?
That's Jerry Hilton, you see.
Okay. I'm glad you could make it, Jerry. Jerry Pfeiffer is in the house. Well, you guys can look at the participants and welcome, give a warm welcome to everybody. There's 84 of you in the room now. So that's kind of a record. And I will also say we are approaching the limit of our license for Zoom. We can do 100 people in the room, and right now we're at 84, which is a high water mark for us. So and for good reason too, because Mike Raia will be putting on a good presentation here tonight. I just wanted to take this opportunity here to remind everybody of our next event, which will take place on a Tuesday evening, Tuesday, February 16th at 7:30 p.m. Central Time for our online slideshow. And 5 presenters are going to be doing 15 minutes each. And hope you can come back for that, because our presenters are Steve Miazga, which he's going to be showing the Duplainville Diamond Replacement Work Blitz. So you're gonna enjoy that, covering the work from just about every conceivable angle from start to finish. Dan Munson will be here with us doing his presentation on blades along the route of the Southwest Chief.
There's talking.
He was out there shooting the former Santa Fe, the semaphores there. Dean Tagola will be one of the people here. And actually, Dean is with us in the house tonight. Dean is going to be doing a presentation on Wisconsin Central's White Pine Line, which will be stellar. It'll be great. Jerry Pfeiffer is also in the house. Jerry's president of the Northwest Illinois chapter of the NRHS. He's going to be doing a short presentation on Wisconsin short lines behind the cheddar curtain. So that'll be good. And then there's this other guy, Mike Uhas, is going to be doing more adventures in railroad photography. So bound to be a good evening. I'm hopeful that that you all can make that as well. Again, thanks to all for being here tonight. I was actually cheating. I was reading all that information off of our chapter's our website, which is www.nrhswis.org. You're probably familiar with it. Those of you who are members, you go to it all the time, perhaps to check out your latest edition of Sparks and Cinders. One comes in the mail, but also to read it online, the full color version. We have that open for anybody who wants to see that. And again, I'll for those who were here a little bit earlier, we gave a shout out to our treasurer, Tara Grudzelanek. Tara, could you unmute yourself and say hi to us again?
Hi, everybody. Good to see everyone.
Good to see you, Tara. And thank you. You were the one that got us up and running with our PayPal link. So folks, it's very simple, very easy to join the Wisconsin chapter of the NRHS. Just go to our website, www.nrhswis.org, click the little join button, and you'll see a place to put in your to click on to PayPal. PayPal will pick up your name and address from your PayPal account already, so you don't even have to enter that. It's just boom, and an easy transaction, easy peasy, as they say. So, and I should point out that we do have several new members to recognize. Since our last time doing this, I would like to say hi to Jim Rint from Sheboygan. Jim, I know he's here on the call tonight. Jim is a new member of our chapter. Robert Tabern from, or is it Taburn, of Barron is a new member. You know, he was one of our co-presenters back in October with our Wisconsin Great Northern program. He has joined our chapter. Gordon Smith from Circle Pines, Minnesota. He's with us tonight. I see him in the room. He is a new member. Welcome, Gordy. Ed Weisensell is here, and there's a question. He's not turning on his camera, so there's a question as to whether he is wearing pants or not. And that will just remain a question. Joseph Desidui is here in the house from Medford, Massachusetts. Thank you for your recent membership in the Wisconsin chapter. And also finally, Paul Brosowski is our newest of our new members. Welcome, Paul. You are a new member of our chapter, and we appreciate your joining. So with that, I think we have 88 people with us right now. I think we're going to get started. Are there any other announcements? Anything else that needs to come before the group before we get into Mike's presentation? Anybody?
Yeah, I'd like to add that a joint member of both your chapter and NWI, Gordy Geddes, passed away last month.
Oh, that is sad news.
Yep.
Thank you for letting us know. Appreciate that, Jerry. And Jerry, while I got you here, we might as well let everybody know we're planning a joint meeting between our two chapters. We're going to do it via Zoom, and I think the date we're looking at is a Saturday. Is it the 8th of May?
Yes, Saturday, May 8th.
Do you want to talk a little bit about our joint program?
Well, Mike had sent out an invite to several area chapter presidents about how we're handling our meetings during this COVID crisis. And during our chat, we kind of formulated an idea that it would be great to have a joint meeting with our two chapters. We normally don't have a meeting in May, and you guys usually meet towards the beginning of the month for the first Friday of the month. So our program producer for that night, it works best with him being an expectant father, should have the kid home by then and can handle our program then. It's going to be a John Jebko production.
The Godfather.
Yes.
Good. So folks, put that on your calendar. That promises to be an excellent evening. And Eric Rasmussen and Ray Peacock are producing the program for that evening. And we will have more information on that as we get closer to the date. Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome.
I'd just like to introduce two, I guess we could call them VIPs in the house tonight. I see Tony White is with us. Tony, do you want to unmute and say hello?
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good to see you here, Tony. Oh, you got a little snow scene there behind you. Tony is the vice president of the National Railway Historical Society. And I'm so glad you've joined our chapter, Tony, and I'm glad that you come to our meetings. And then also in our meeting tonight is the president of the National Railway Historical Society, Al Weber. Why don't you unmute, and are there any words of wisdom from the president of the society?
Well, stay warm. That's probably the best wisdom you can get. Here, though, it's only 32 degrees at the moment, so 32 to 37. But we're in St. Louis. I'm in St. Louis, and we're supposed to get down to near zero coming up. But I think everybody north of us, like most of the people on this meeting, will get a lot colder. But that's it. The National's doing well. We're in our renewal cycle as normal. We just voted to increase the grants to I want to say $75,000. Thank you for all the donations, because remember, none of this comes out of your dues. So if you have chapters that have needs to restore something or do some railroad history preservation, make sure they apply. The reason we have money is that unfortunately we did have a gentleman pass on, and he gave us a chunk of change, but as in all historic grants, we give away the money we get. And so that'll be a nice thing to help preserve railroad history. Other than that, thank you all for having me, and look forward to seeing you maybe this summer in a convention.
Indeed. Thank you, Alan. Welcome to the Wisconsin chapter this evening. All right, Mike Raia, are you ready to go, Mike Raia? You are a railroader yourself, working with Anacostia Rail Holdings in the finance department. Your dad was a longtime railroader with the Soo Line. He was a student of railroad history just as yourself, and he brought his camera to work, and he took a few pictures over the years, right? And that's what you're going to show us tonight. So I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir. Welcome to the Wisconsin NRHS chapter February meeting. Mike Raia, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for the great introduction. And thank you everybody for showing up tonight, and hopefully be a couple things of interest for you. Like Mike said, my dad worked for the Soo Line. He worked on the mechanical side for 44 years. He was a wrecker engineer, locomotive and car foreman at Schiller Park for a few years. Then he ended his career working for the TCU and Canadian Pacific, but mostly for the union as a general chairman. So he had a strong interest in the Soo Line. He took a lot of pictures, of the trains, but also of the people and events that happened out on the railroad, and had a lot of good stories about different things. So what I picked out tonight are some of my favorite pictures that he took, and some things I just kind of find interesting, and I hope you like them. So that's kind of the first part of the show. And then the second part is a show about the Soo Line 1003, which is the Mikado that is in Hartford, Wisconsin. So talk a little bit about the 1003 and what it's up to, and a little bit about its history. So go ahead and get started here. So anyway, like I was saying, a picture of my dad working on the wrecker. He started out as a wrecker fireman, carman, wrecker engineer, always on the mechanical side. So here's a picture of him at a derailment up at Mundelein running the steam hook. This is the roundhouse at Schiller Park in 1966. This is right after my dad started. Wasn't a full roundhouse, but it was a fairly big roundhouse. I can't remember the exact number of tracks, but it was split into two sides. The roundhouse was basically the first building in the area. 1966, they had a little problem. Fire started in the one side of the roundhouse. And as you can see, there wasn't much they could do. The firemen just kind of standing there and watching. They were lucky there was a firewall between the two sides of the roundhouse. So one side survived and the other side unfortunately burned to the ground. March of 1976, kind of the roundhouse met its end. A tornado actually went through Schiller Park and knocked what was remaining of the roundhouse down. There was quite a few people in the roundhouse. They were lucky. They heard it coming. They were able to duck under cars and jump into the pit, and no one really got hurt. My dad was working that day with Lou Gerard Sr. Some of you may know Lou Jr. They were just about to go outside and happened to notice a 55-gallon drum of fuel oil go flying past the window, and thought, well, maybe we'll stay in here for a little while longer, which turned out to be the right move. Another view of the roundhouse, a couple cars that were collapsed in there. And then finally, another fire, and that was the end of the roundhouse. They tore it down shortly after that, and the area became an open air pit for the carmen. So they had to work outside in the pits. A little better scene in Schiller Park. This is in 1978. A couple sets of power getting ready to be serviced. November of 1985, night shots. This is getting close to the end, right before they moved over to Bensonville. So my dad went out and tried to document a lot of the area, a lot of the yard, knowing that it was going to be closed or significantly modified at that time. I used to get a lot of different visitors into Schiller. This is Mesabi Elko. I believe it's on its way back from the Mesabi. I believe they had them for a couple years up there. I think there was 10 of them in total, but strange visitor to Schiller Park for sure. Soo Line liked the least power. This is a lease set in 1969 of ABBA of Northern Pacific F units that they used for a few months. So it was something a little different there. This is the north end of the yard. This is actually the yard office, which still exists today. I believe CN uses it. So we're looking south at the yard. Schiller was actually the biggest yard on the Soo Line and was also the newest. If you guys ever saw any car marks for repairs, they were always labeled NY for new yard. 1976, still using hand signals. So this is the, again, the north end of the yard, the toll road up above the engine in the background there, and they're doing a little flat switching. 1978, April 78, 2860 visited Chicago and Schiller Park. The engine was on tour with a train promoting British Columbia. I believe the train went across Canada and then came down via Toronto and CSX into Chicago. Then it took the Soo Line back up north to Canada. So we had to get a shot, of course, with a Mountie. This is right before the engine was about to leave. My dad was actually yard foreman, relief yard foreman at the time. So we were able to set up some lights rather quickly and get a few shots before he had to give the train and air test and send it on its way. This is how tight grip couplers work. If you notice, there's something missing here. The wheel actually blew apart about a mile down. No one noticed it until the carman was giving the train a roll by as it left the yard and happened to notice that there were no wheels there. So they quickly stopped the train. They found like I say, they found the wheel at the south end on Irving Park, and miraculously it had blown off the track and away from the train itself and didn't derail it. 1979 is when we had the big snows in Chicago. This is the one and only time that I know of that they actually brought in snow plows to plow the yard out. So this is they're going back and forth over the tracks in the yard just to try to clear out all the snow that had been piled up. Same time frame, they did a little wheel work while they were here. So they got the wrecker out and lifted her while lifted the snow plow and actually changed out the wheels. This is what happens when you're switching the rip and you don't hear the "that'll do" call. So this flat car shoved into the Rip Track yard office. The gentleman on the flat car having a smoke is Jack Loberg. He was in charge of the yard. And the flat car is in his office. He actually called Minneapolis from inside his office on top of the flat car, and they asked him, well, how bad is it? And he said, well, I'm standing on a flat car inside my office talking to you. There was a long silence, and I said, okay. So they got that repaired rather quickly. This is in 1970, this is the gantry crane. Usually they use that for containers or trucks at the time. But they had some wrecked 40-foot Soo Line boxcars that were going to scrap. So instead of using the wrecker, they actually used the gantry crane, rolled them under there, lifted them up, moved the wheels out of the way, rolled a flat car in, and then put the car on the flat car and send it off to scrap. So it's something you don't usually see with a gantry crane. 1975, Soo Line had its bicentennial down. This is a picture at the south end. The engine's about to take out a belt transfer. This is in September of 1975. The next day after it came back, they participated in the Schiller Park Parade. The engine just sat on top of the bridge and basically on display for everybody. It was quite popular at the time. South end of the yard, on the left are a couple of leased Conrail SD40s getting ready to take out a transfer and coming in as a inbound freight. Soo Line over the years leased quite a bit of different power. Masabi was always common, Erie, Lackawanna F units during the early 70s. Conrail, they leased some Jeep 40s, SD40s, and I believe even some U-boats. Soo 502A is doubling back into the yard. My dad had gotten a call from Fran Wiener, who was the crew caller up at Fond du Lac, and he said, "Hey, I got a couple interesting trains heading your way. First one's got Soo F in the lead and Jeep 30 and a couple Masabis, and then behind him is a extra grain train with a Jeep and BA." We were actually headed to the Northwestern Illinois chapter picnic at the time. So we had all our picnic stuff packed up, and we thought, well, we run over here, get a couple shots, and then we'll make the picnic. So we never did make the picnic and ended up eating our food in the yard office at Schiller Park. But it was worth it. We missed the picnic, but we actually got 3 different F unit powertrains that day, which even back in the mid 70s was quite unusual down in Schiller Park. B12. Crossing the Milwaukee Road, this Soo Line transfer coming through. Notice it's at this time it was still double tracked. The track going off to the left was the harbor connection. Of course, this is all different now. It's a single track through here, and the connection is gone, and there's a direct connection with the Milwaukee now CP. This is Madison Street. So on the left is Soo 722 with freight, and then on the right was an extra potash train with CP power. Getting CP power in the 70s down in Schiller was actually quite unusual, so it was quite a big deal. This happened 3 or 4 times with these potash trains that came through. Madison Street is also where the Soo Line switches over to the B&O CT. So from here, they actually have to call in to the B&O CT to get permission to go on their tracks. And this is the call box, which is actually called God's call box. So he's calling into the B&O CT to see if they can get permission to proceed. 1973, this is down at the Zephyr Pit. My dad, Lee Haseman, and Ed DeRowan went down there to shoot the Zephyr Pit and everything that was around there at that time. And at that time, the Soo Line marquee sign was still lit up, so they were able to fit that in with an Amtrak engine. This is 18th Street, Soo Line job heading over to Markham. This scene's changed quite a bit, almost completely. I guess the only thing left is actually the engine house over on the right. So like I say, he's heading over to Markham over the airline. This is a view from on the train, as just about as he's going through bridges. This is 18th Street, again, the Markham job with a Jeep leading this time. This is in July of 1977. This was actually a nice place to shoot, nice wooden bridge that took you over from 18th Street all the way over to Soldier Field. The tracks in the foreground there were the leads to Central Station, which at this time I think only had stored boxcars. But at one point in time was actually the interchange point with the IC and the Soo Line. This is 23rd Street on the IC. I believe this day we were actually out trying to shoot South Shore, the old orange cars, and the transfer came by. So in the background is the 23rd Street station, and off to the far left and across the tracks would be McCormick Place. This is also a scene of the big wreck that IC had with highliners and old cars. It was 3 trains that actually all derailed and hit each other there. The only thing that they were lucky about that day was off to the right is actually Mike Raia Hospital, and they were actually able to do a lot of triage right there in the tracks and actually saved a lot of people that way. Back at Schiller Park, this is 4 brand new SDs. This is in November of '73. The Soo Line used to take all their new power and they'd get it up in Wisconsin. So they'd have it delivered usually by Milwaukee Road up to Burlington, and they would take it there because the taxes were cheaper. But then during the '70s, they actually started getting deliveries right in Schiller Park. So these are 4 SDs, brand new. You can almost smell the paint on them, and they're heading north. I mentioned earlier we missed the picnic. This was the 2nd train that was behind them. Again, an AGPA and an extra grain train. And this is along Mannheim Road in Des Plaines. The Val Tower would across the Northwestern Harvard line, the Muscle line. This is a train heading towards Schiller Park, just about to hit the Diamonds. The tower is long gone, but lasted quite a while. I believe into the '90s. I could be wrong, but I know it lasted quite a long time compared to some of the other towers. This is again in the winter of 1979. Train heading north or west, just past the old semaphore signals that were there. Lethen Tower, this U-boat and an F just about to come out onto the main line after meeting a couple trains that were heading west. At the time, this time too, the tower was still manned. Of course, this area is completely changed now. Of course, this is CN, but this is their big interchange to cut over to the J. This is in September of 1979 at Mundelein. This is the last ABA into and out of Schiller Park. They came in early in the morning, got serviced, and went right back out that afternoon. So September '79, and that was the end for the ABAs. This was an extra east, and this is actually just north of Mundelein at the gas works. This was actually a pair of FP7s in February of '79. Soo was really short on power, and this is all they had. So they threw the 2 Fs together and many cars as they could pull, and headed down towards Schiller from Fond du Lac. Lake Villa, train heading west with Lake Villa in the background. Excuse me. This was quite a nice spot. It was a spot we always tried to get the lake in the background. North Milwaukee, this is in July of 1979. This is the Milwaukee turn coming in. We had chased them actually down from Fond du Lac and made our way over to North Milwaukee. The Milwaukee turn was always a train we tried to get because it always seemed to rate F units. So that's the train going into the yard, and this Milwaukee FM waiting. He actually invited us on board, and we all got to ride for a couple miles. I believe there was a scrapyard just a little bit north of here, and he took us up there, switched and brought us back. So it was kind of a nice day. F units and riding FMs. Doesn't get much better than that. This is Germantown, and let's see, this is in July of '74, 2200A. Again, the Milwaukee turn on Milwaukee Road tracks. This was kind of standard power in the early '70s, was ABA. If you notice here, looks like it's a single track line through here. Grass is growing over everything. But actually there's a siding there, and this guy was coming the other way and he was flying. You can see the crew guy, the conductor, brakeman on the F unit kind of looking out to see if this guy was going to stay on the track. He was flying, the cars were going every which direction, but he made it. So This is marsh siding. My dad and fellow Soo Liner John Meyerhoff had taken a ride up to Fond du Lac, and their train was holding the main while the Milwaukee Turn took the siding. This was a few months earlier. This is actually a Rugby Junction, meeting the Milwaukee Turn. Like I say, it was a nice train to catch because it usually rated an ABA. And this was, let's see, March of '74. Slinger, this Milwaukee Road Depot, which is turned but preserved. Quite a nice museum that they have in there. This is a train heading towards Schiller Park. Again, the Milwaukee Turn, this is just north of Slinger. This is in July of 1974. I'm not exactly sure the location. I remember being here, but I know it was north of Slinger, but I do remember the old wigwag. It's made a nice little photo prop. Thressa Station, my dad was actually up here for over a week on a wreck. So in the morning, they would get all the trains through on the main, and then they would go to work, which worked quite well for him. So he'd go out, shoot everything coming through, and then go to work. Byron Hill. So after the Fs were taken out of service, they were replaced by the U-boats. Towards the end of their career, all the U-boats seemed to congregate in Fond du Lac, which worked out quite well. They were able to keep them running. The GEs were always not well liked on the Soo Line, just because they were different from all the EMDs. So they always had a hard time keeping them running. So when they based them in Fond du Lac, they were able to devote some resources to them and keep them going. And they were actually quite pretty good engines. So again, this is Byron Hill up at the top. They're also used in helper service. This is a GE shoving on the rear of a train. This is Fond du Lac from the yard office. This is in September of 1972. My dad was actually up here working on the record. They had done some work, so they sent him up there to help with the work and also to test the record and make sure everything was the way he needed it. So all the RSs seem to end their career up in Fond du Lac, 72, 73, and I think they made it into 74. But basically the whole yard was all Elcos at that time. It was pretty neat watching them switch. Again, another shot right across the street from the yard office. My dad did a lot of black and white and actually didn't start shooting color until about 72, 73. So this is some stuff he had shot up at Fond du Lac. This was in, I believe, 1971 of the Elcos sitting around in the roundhouse. This was also the Milwaukee turn power for the next day. Oshkosh. So it's train heading across the bridge. This is in August of 1980. Train heading railroad east. Street running in Oshkosh, Division Street. This is in July of 73. Train heading towards Stevens Point. Interesting story that was told on the Soo here was gentleman, as you can tell, the houses were right next to the railroad tracks, and evidently he didn't see the train coming. He backed his car out and he got clipped by a train that was heading east. So he took his car actually down the block. A couple of blocks behind the train, there was actually an auto body shop. A couple of weeks later, he got his car back. He started it out, drove across the tracks. Again, didn't see the train coming the other direction. And this time they totaled the car. And the ironic part about it was the same crew, both directions, hitting his car. So if you don't succeed the first time, you can get it the second time. It's the rear of the train heading through the street. And as you can see, the businesses and we're really right up along the track. That's our old 68 Impala Super Sport in the background there. Pair of Jeep 30s heading east here. Excuse me. This is in June of 1979. Of course, this trackage is all gone now. Nina, July 78, SD and an F making a set out. July of 1981, one of the M&S engines that the Soo Line, when they acquired the M&S engines, the two SDs kind of roamed the system for quite a while. Actually, the pair ended up in Schiller and transfer service for a couple months, which was quite nice. But this is heading into Nina, heading west. This is the Manitowoc job. So this is over in Menasha. Actually, these are two unique engines for the Soo Line. The 722 is the only Jeep 35 with Elco trucks. And behind it is 2228A Baldy. This F met its match when some REA express cars that were in a siding decided to roll out of the siding and onto the main, hit the engine and damaged it, but they were able to fix everything except they took off the top headlights. So always looked a little strange. This is just outside of Stevens Point. This is in May of 78. This is actually on Green Bay and Western trackage. The Soo Line used the Green Bay and Western trackage out of Point to head over to the Wisconsin Rapids. So this is the 501A and a Jeep with a large load of pulpwood heading towards the Rapids. And this is in the Rapids. This is in Marshfield, train heading towards Stevens Point. You'll notice the brake smoke from the rear. This guy was flying. This is probably the fastest I've ever seen a Soo Line train go. We barely got out of the car, got the picture. He was flying. He must have been running late on time or something. But it kind of made for a neat scene. Puff the Magic Dragon. This is up in Spencer in August of 1977. Because my dad was a wrecker engineer and because he had experience with steam, they sent him up there to actually train the new crew. The original operator retired. So he went up there for a week to learn about the pile driver and to basically teach the guys how to fire it and how to run it. So he had quite a good time here. The Puff was self-propelled. So they would run up and down on the main line and actually had a little chime whistle that they would kind of blow for the crossing. So he had a good time with this. Manual loading into the back of the pile driver to get the coal. This is a train going past the pile driver at Spencer. Dolly Sisters is up in New Brighton in August 1979. 416 is on a transfer. Usually the Dollies were together, but occasionally they would put them on to different trains and run them by themselves. And so this is at New Brighton again on a local. Just outside of Minneapolis, outside of Shoreham Yard. This is the other ruling grade on the Soo Line, if you can call it that. So this is the other spot that they actually used helpers on. And this day they actually had the two Dolly Sisters shoving on the rear end. 2500A, this is at Shoreham in May of 78, getting a bath. Soo Line took pride in their units, always tried to keep them clean, even the F units, even when it was coming to the end of their lifespan here. 2229B is again Minneapolis, just leaving Shoreham Yard in, excuse me, August of 79. This was kind of normal power for the locals between Shoreham and Glenwood, and then also Shoreham and Chippewa Falls. A single F would kind of be the normal power. I'm sure the crews didn't like doing it with all the switching, but it was kind of good for the rail fan community. Again, back in 78, this is the Royal Hudson. I believe this is actually on Milwaukee Road trackage, meeting the Dolly Sisters. Again, the Hudson was heading over to a park in Minneapolis area to be on display before heading back towards Canada. This is 28B. This is Hankinson, North Dakota. In August of '78, my dad was offered a job as a foreman in Harvey, North Dakota. So we had to make a real quick trip out to Harvey, North Dakota to see if he wanted to take the job and see what it was all about. So just happened to be driving and saw this guy. It's kind of typical for locals out there. Again, single F and a million cars. This is beautiful Harvey, North Dakota, downtown. The next closest town was about 40 miles away. They had a nice small roundhouse here and turntable and a little yard office. It was an interesting area. The turntable, if it wasn't working that day, one of the employees would actually go over and get his horse to help turn the engines and spin the turntable. Jumping around a little bit, here we are in Trout Lake, going past the signal boards there. This train is heading towards Sault Ste. Marie. Again, same train. This is down in St. Ignace, the Chief Wauwautam. This was the last hand bomber on the lakes, meaning she was coal hand fired. Soo Line was on one side, Detroit Mackinac was on the other side. So here's actually a brand new Soo Line Jeep 38 doing a little switching, putting her load on the Chief. And this is the Chief heading across the straits. And I'll end with this slide, a little glint shot. This is at Shoreham. This train had just come in from Glenwood. It was actually supposed to be an AB that we went out to get, and it turned out to be an AG 38, but at least the F unit was leading. So kind of made for a fun chase on the way back. Like I say, this is just about heading into Shoreham. And with that, that's it for my first presentation. Is everybody doing okay? Anyone falling asleep or anything? Am I keeping you awake at least?
I think we're doing excellent.
All right, good.
Are there any questions or anything for Mike as we launch into his second half?
May need to let us catch our breath a little bit here after seeing all that. That was
Yeah,
really
Mike?
something, really something.
Mike, what do you use for a scanner? Good stuff.
Actually, I'm using a Epson V700, and I'm actually looking to upgrade. I was a little late to the game to getting the Nikon. By the time I realized that was kind of the cream of the crop, you couldn't get them anymore. So I use the Epson. My dad has an extensive negative collection. So he collected steam negatives and diesel negatives, traded with a lot of people. So actually the vast majority of the collection, probably 200,000 to 300,000 negatives, is all black and white. And the Epson V700 really does an excellent job on the black and whites.
Does a good job on the color ones as well.
Thanks.
Hey Mike, what percentage of slides do you think of your dad's you have right now scanned? Not that many, or like half, quarter, you know?
I would say 1%.
Really? Unbelievable. Great stuff, man. Your dad was a great
thanks.
guy. It was a great show.
I got a question from Maine. That's a great collection that you've got. Where is it going to go when the time is right to have it move on to some museum or something?
Well, that's an excellent question. Recently, I joined the board of Lake States Railway Historical Association in Baraboo. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I am. I've been there.
Okay. So that may be a landing spot for it. They do have a lot of different collections. Bruce Meyer, a lot of Lee Haseman's stuff went there that didn't go to my dad. So that what they're doing there, I think is some good work. They've really come a long way, and they really have a nice collection. Of course, all you need is money and more people to help with it. But I think we're working towards that to hopefully turn it really into something. But if you ever get a chance, check out Lake States. There's a lot of stuff online that you can look at. A lot of Bruce Meyer, like I say, Bruce Meyer's collection, a lot of older stuff from Wisconsin area. So if you get a chance to take a look. So that's probably where the collection will go as of right now.
Thanks. Good answer.
Mike, did your
Appreciate it.
dad shoot, is it Kodachrome 25 that he mainly shot?
He mostly shot Kodachrome 64.
Okay.
Yeah. A little bit, actually, a lot of the early 70s stuff was Ektachrome.
Well, it all looks like it was shot yesterday. Really great.
Thanks. Anybody else? Any other questions or anything I can answer?